Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is Congressman Garret Graves. Garret is going to talk to us about, one, $10 billion in federal money that Baton Rouge and Louisiana is receiving for flood improvement and projects, diversion canal included. He's going to talk to us about transportation bill, the FAST Act that was passed that's bringing us improvements. He's going to talk to us about some national issues that are important to all of us. Join us on the next Legal Lines with Congressman Garret Graves. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our firm for help in handling your legal matter. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. We have over 60 years combined legal experience as lawyers. I've been practicing over 30 years, Sean over 25, and I have paralegals and legal secretaries who've worked for me for over 27 years. We've handled about every kind of case you can handle, and we've been very good at it. The bottom line is, it is our goal to be your protector when necessary, advisor, negotiator, and to successfully conclude the litigation for you in a way that is very favorable. Knowledge is power, and the folks who know what they're doing empower you. They enable you to make the right kind of decisions that best serves you. And that's our number one goal, frankly. Our number one ministry is to serve you. Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have back on the show our Congressman Garret Graves. Garret, it's so great to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you.
I know you got some great news. I guess first of all, let's talk about the fact that you're having to run for re-election again. Seems like just 2 years ago.
It is. The job comes up for, I guess, re-upping every 2 years. You get to be held accountable to the folks that you're representing, the people that you're working for. And so we are on the ballot in November.
Purposefully designed that way, 250 years ago almost,
Yep.
And it seems to work, but you guys make huge sacrifices. I mean, you really do.
Well, there's a lot of travel involved and away from the family a good bit. But one of the things that is really good about this is that you have an opportunity. You're in a position to help people that you live with, people that you friends with, people in your community, and so. This job, while I'm not going to deny, there's some challenges or sacrifices, especially if you have a family. Right. Just having an opportunity to help out the community, the state where you live and love, there's an upside to it as well.
Well, and you do a lot of meeting. I mean, when you come back in town, tell the folks kind of what the normal process is.
Yeah, so normally we fly up to Washington early Monday morning and fly home late Thursday. Sometimes it's early Tuesday and coming back late Friday. Sometimes it's 5 days a week or even over the weekend. But generally it's 4 days a week there and 3 days a week at home. And so when we're home, that is when we do meetings with constituents and different groups and organizations that want to meet. So generally we're working 7 days a week.
And when you have those brief occasions where y'all have time down, you're still meeting with folks.
Yeah, so Congress generally adjourns for the month of August every year. So this August we've been home all month, which is great because I get to sleep in my bed and see the kids. But it means that we're out meeting, and I've been. I think we went back and counted. We've done 42 constituent meetings. I just left the lunch. We do something called Grub with Garret, where we post up on Facebook or send out an email and say the first 10 or 12 people to email back, we're going to buy you lunch in whatever city, and we sit down for an hour and a half and talk about whatever topics they want to. So you spend a lot of time meeting with people, going to look at projects. I was out looking at some of the flood control projects we're working on. So just traveling around a good bit, meeting with federal agencies. I met with the Secret Service this morning, met with the Corps of Engineers last week. And so really just trying to connect with people and some of the issues you're working on in DC, see how on the ground progress is advancing.
Well, you know, what you're wonderful at too also is you really do use the web to communicate with folks, and Facebook and all of that stuff. I mean, people can communicate with you pretty quickly. And you're very responsive.
Well, Locke, it's amazing how much things have changed. Everything from when I am in Washington, I use FaceTime like nobody's business with the kids and communicate with our kids all the time. But the other thing is how it's helped with people you represent. So even when you're home, we have 13 parishes, 750,000 people. It takes hours to drive from one side to the other. So we could do a town hall meeting in Thibodaux, but then people in New Roads, you can say, well, hey, wait a minute. I can't get there easily. And so one of the things about Facebook Live, for example, we can post up on Facebook Live people could be at home in their underwear, people could be at work or riding in the car as a passenger, and they can be participating in their government in a virtual town hall meeting. And so we would schedule town hall meetings, we would do radio advertisements and mailings. We may have 50 people there, maybe. I can do a Facebook Live without even announcing it. We'll have 10,000 people
Crazy.
that watch the video within 24 hours. So it's
a wonderful
amazing.
medium.
It is.
It's extraordinary. Well, and I really appreciate the fact that you use it and you enable people to communicate with you that way. I want to congratulate you and all of our delegation from Louisiana, from our senators and all the way down to accomplishing a huge thing. But I have a suspicion you were the tip of the arrow on what's just been accomplished with the flood diversion canal and so many other projects. Explain what's going on.
Yeah, Locke, so as you and I have discussed in the past, we've been able to get about $10 billion in flood recovery dollars.
$10 billion.
In flood recovery from the 2016 floods. And look, that's everything from helping to rebuild our roads and schools and other important assets, some of the private payments to people, to restore Louisiana programs funded with federal funds. But I always struggle with that whole concept. So let's say you got a flood insurance check, or you got a check from Restore Louisiana, or you had to think about tapping your savings or your retirement to reopen your office, to build your home back. And you were sitting there in the back of your mind saying, wait a minute, is this place going to flood again? Am I going to use my savings? Am I going to use this insurance check? And am I just going to be flushing this down the toilet because it's going to flood again? And I really struggled with making people make that decision. So we really just started working very hard. I literally had meetings with the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the White House Office of Management Budget, the Commanding General of the Corps of Engineers, the Chief of Engineers, General Semonite, the Assistant Secretary of the Army, and many others. We had 25 different meetings.
Good gosh.
Just meeting with different people on this. I said, look, we've got to stop. People should not have to make those decisions.
Well, I'm one of those. I mean, this place flooded, my house. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of folks you helped.
There are. So what we did is we built a portfolio of projects in different funding streams, and we have been able to get $3 billion in new federal investment to get the best flood protection this region's ever had. So I want to be clear, not to return us back to where we were before August of 2016, but to take us to flood protection levels we've never experienced.
Make it better.
That's right. And so projects that have been around, 32 years, the Comeat Project, 44 years, the West Shore Project, 20 years, the East Baton Rouge Parish Flood Control Project. Taking projects like that and taking them from standstill, logjam for decades to full completion. So those projects are now fully funded. They're going to be moving forward. Work's going to start on some of them as early as next month, is September. And really excited.
Stuff.
And it is amazing, and it's exciting that we've been able to break these decadal log jams that have just been preventing these projects from moving forward for decades. And importantly, people in this community are going to be able to benefit from lower flood insurance rates in the short term. We're not even going to have to finish these projects. There are programs, we've had conference calls with FEMA and city and parish officials talking through this. We're going to be able to get lower flood insurance rates before these projects are even finished. So some real win-wins there.
Well, and I read, and it makes a ton of sense. Why not spend millions, in this case billions, to save way more when you have to fix everything and you may not be able to fix it permanently. So it's a wonderful accomplishment. Well, so what are the timelines that we're kind of having with regard to these various projects?
Well, so let's run through a few of these. So you have the Comeat project. That project is designed to pull water off the Comeat River. You have the Comeat, the Amite River, it goes down as the Amite. Pull water off the Comeat River and send it into the Mississippi River, where you have ample capacity, won't cause any flooding problems.
And Garrett, explain to folks why we have to do that. As I understand it, this is kind of a man-made problem in some ways.
Well, it kind of is. So the Mississippi River, most people don't fully appreciate this, but in South Louisiana, we generally don't drain through the Mississippi River. And all of our area generally drains down into the Maurepas-Pontchartrain Basin. And so I think there's 16 parishes, if I remember right. They all drain down in through there. And so all the development we've had in Zachary and Central and Livingston, Ascension parishes, you've got a lot more water coming into those rivers. And so if we can pull water off of the Comeat River and send it to the Mississippi River, it helps provide more drainage capacity in the Comeat and the Amite River. It provides better flood protection for East Baton Rouge Parish, for Livingston Parish, and for Ascension Parish. So excited about that project moving forward. Should be done in about 3 to 4 years under the Corps of Engineers timeline. Second project, $255 million for the East Baton Rouge Parish flood control.
All right, well, let's pick this up on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. My special guest, Congressman Garret. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our firm for help in handling your legal matter. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. We have over 60 years combined legal experience as lawyers. I've been practicing over 30 years, Sean over 25, and I have paralegals and legal secretaries who've worked for me for over 27 years. We've handled about every kind of case you can handle, and we've been very good at it. The bottom line is, it is our goal to be your protector when necessary, advisor, negotiator, and to successfully conclude the litigation for you in a way that is very favorable. Knowledge is power, and the folks who know what they're doing empower you. They enable you to make the right kind of decisions that best serves you. And that's our number one goal, frankly. Our number one ministry is to serve you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith again. Very pleased to have back on the show our Congressman Garret Graves. Let's dive back in. You were talking that you guys have gotten $10 billion from the federal government to improve our flood scenarios here. We were discussing the Comite Diversion Canal, and you expect that to be completed within 3 to 4 years.
Comite project should be completed in that timeline. Look, this project's been around since the concept since the late 1970s. A little bit more of a mature project, the early 80s. This thing's been studied to death. It's been reported to death. There's nothing else to do other than turn dirt.
So that's a done deal. It's going to happen.
Fully funded. We just announced $343 million. That's on top of some other funds. So in total, it will be just under $400 million in investment.
Fantastic. So shifting gears a little bit, what about specifically for East Baton Rouge Parish? As I understand, did well there too.
There's another project. It's sort of floating under the radar. It hadn't had the prominence that the Comite project has, but it's called East Baton Rouge Parish Flood Control. It's designed to improve Blackwater Bayou and Beaver Bayou in the northern part of the parish, and then in the southern part, Ward Creek, Jones Creek, and Bayou Fountain. So these aren't Mississippi River, Comite River. These are backyard canals, bayous that.
But they turn into big rivers when it floods.
They do, and they drain our neighborhoods. So it's all about improving the flow and capacity in those canals, ditches, and bayous. And it's about $255 million to carry out all of those improvements. It's going to be enlarging, in some cases, concrete.
So it's getting the water out of there fast.
Absolutely. Okay. Bigger bridges, revetments, everything to help improve the flow. And ultimately, that project, while it's going to help in the big floods, that one's even going to help in some of the afternoon rainfalls that inundates our streets. And so that one's going to, I think you're going to see the repercussions, the benefits of it in more frequently than you will the Comite project.
Now, I understand there was also hundreds of millions that were obtained for the West Bank project?
The West Shore project.
West Shore project.
In the river region. So that is a project that has been around for 44 years. It was in the study process through the Corps of Engineers for 42 years.
I was going to say, I bet I know who most of that was.
42 years of Corps of Engineers. We finally were able to eject it from the study process. We put it in federal law in December of 2016 and authorized it for construction. We were really excited about getting that accomplishment done. And we just announced $760 million to fully fund that project. It's where Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas kind of come together. Mm-hmm. We saw a lot of inundation and storm surge during Hurricane Isaac in 2012, flooded areas that hadn't flooded ever before. So it builds a levee along there, I believe it's about 18 miles, largely protecting St. Charles Parish, St. John Parish, and then some ring levee components in St. James Parish. So really helping out the river region. And, once again, 44-year logjam, we're able to break it and get it fully funded.
So is that the reason the timelines are going to be pretty constricted? Because really everything's already been done. We just needed the money?
Well, so Corps of Engineer projects have a lot of flaws in regard to the process development process and the implementation. In that generally the funding comes in annual streams, and you may hit a jackpot one year and get 20 million. The next year you may get zero.
Right.
So the unpredictability of the funding, the uncertainty, and the lack of consistency of funding adds significant time and cost to these projects. So getting full funding up front is one of the best ways to expedite completion of a project and that's why we know we can finish this thing in 5 to 6 years.
Does the state of Louisiana have to put up any money to make this happen?
So on the Comey project, no. That one's going to be 100% federal. On East Baton Rouge Parish flood control and on the West Shore project, those projects are going to have a 35% non-federal cost share requirement. However, what we did, we provided full upfront federal funding, and then we're going to give the state, the parishes, the levee districts a 30-year period to pay their portion.
So they can go borrow the money.
Right, and our concern is if we had just provided all the federal funding, if the state didn't have the match for it, that we could not build these projects. And so we didn't want that to happen. So we allowed for this 30-year time frame. We got all the federal money up front, and that way there should be 100% certainty that these projects are moving forward.
Now, it seems like I read there was another component to this, but I don't recall specifically what it was.
So there were a few other things. So we had $15 million for Grand Isle, and any of you who go fishing down there behind Bridgeside Marina, the Corps of Engineers built a Cajun burrito down there to help protect the island, and the engineering, the design on it I think was flawed from the beginning, so $15 million can be spent fixing that and shoring it up. There are 5 studies that we funded at $3 million each to advance. One of them is West Bank in Jefferson, Plaquemine and Orleans parishes.
Excellent.
One of them is Lake Pontchartrain, Vicinity, St. Charles, Jefferson, and Orleans. One of them is the Amite project, so looking at the Amite River Basin in this area, East Baton Rouge, Ascension, and Iberville. The South Central project over in St. Martin.
This is comprehensive.
It is.
Very
Iberia
comprehensive.
and St. Mary parishes. And so those projects are all going to be advanced and ultimately move forward toward construction at some point. We also got $300 million through FEMA for flood protection, about $60 million through USDA, and another huge announcement, $1.2 billion through the Department of Housing and Urban Development for flood protection projects. So look, you add this all up, Locke, this is the most money we have ever seen for flood protection in this region, and really excited about what it's going to do to lower our flood insurance rates. But more importantly, as we know, our homes are usually where most of our money is held up, and to have that asset vulnerable to flooding and destruction, it's not okay. And so really excited about the ultimate just protection of those.
On behalf of everybody, thank you,
Thank
and thank you to our delegation, because Lord knows we needed it.
Big win for South Louisiana.
Amen. So I also know kind of in this context, the National Flood Insurance Program has been extended. Can you tell folks what that means for them?
So the National Flood Insurance Program, it was going to expire. We were able to extend it through the end of November. So we're going to have
to hurry up.
Yeah, and, you know, Locke, this has been a real challenge because there's some people out there that say, oh, we need to reform this. I believe we need to reform it too. But in my opinion, reform doesn't mean coming to everybody in South Louisiana and increasing your rates 3, 4, and 5-fold. That's not reform. This is very different than car insurance. If I go out and I get in 5 wrecks in my car and they're all my fault, absolutely.
Right.
Increase my car insurance rates. But if I have a house that has never flooded before and all of a sudden within a 5-year period flooded twice, it probably isn't because of anything I did. And most people don't fully appreciate this. We drain from Montana to New York to Canada. And so they're sending us more water. And
they're building up there, putting concrete, making it come faster, and all that too.
But you can't charge me for what they're doing in Canada, but that effectively is what some reforms are trying to do, and that's wrong. So we're fighting for this offense, let's go build levees and flood protection and pump stations, and defense, which is when you flood, we'll go ahead and pay out those claims, but don't charge people unaffordable rates and call that reform.
I also know you kind of, because of all your experience now, because of this tragedy, you've recognized there's duplication benefits, screwball analysis going on these days.
You know, all the awful federal policies are highlighted when you have a disaster like we did, and one of them that has gotten a lot of attention, appropriately so, is called duplication of benefits. Now, Locke, if you give me the option to choose between a loan and a grant, I'm going to choose a grant every single time.
That's right.
I don't have to pay it back. Yet the federal government has decided that when you have a loan and a grant, they're duplicative of one another.
Claw it back. All right.
And so it's a flawed policy. We've passed a fix through the House of Representatives that permanently fixes it, and we're waiting on the Senate.
Just got to get passed. We'll be right back. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. My special guest, Congressman Garret, and we'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our firm for help in handling your legal matter. We know what we're doing. We've been around for a long time. We have over 60 years combined legal experience as lawyers. I've been practicing over 30 years, Sean over 25, and I have paralegals and legal secretaries who've worked for me for over 27 years. We've handled about every kind of case you can handle, and we've been very good at it. The bottom line is, it is our goal to be your protector when necessary, advisor, negotiator, and to successfully conclude the litigation for you in a way that is very favorable. Knowledge is power, and the folks who know what they're doing empower you. They enable you to make the right kind of decisions that best serves you. And that's our number one goal, frankly. Our number one ministry is to serve you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, pleased to have back on the show our Congressman Garret. Let's dive back in. You were kind of discussing at the end of that segment the attempt to eliminate this duplication of benefits provision that basically allows the government to take back money they gave you, which you thought was going to be a grant.
Locke, this is a real injustice. You can imagine someone who just had a home flood. They're looking for any resources available to help them rebuild their home, get their family back to a safe spot. Initially, the only funds that were available were these smaller dollar FEMA grants. In order to be eligible for one, you had to apply for a loan through the Small Business Administration first. Of course, everyone who was aggressively trying to recover did exactly what they were told, only to find out months later that once this Restore Louisiana grant program started, that if you took a loan or even applied for one and were approved, you were ineligible for a grant. And so this policy actually penalizes those that tried to be proactive and quickly recover.
And do what they're told to do.
And those are the people that should be rewarded, that should be patted on the back, not knocked upside the head. And so we're fixing this. We've passed this fix through the House of Representatives twice, along with about 14 other good policy reforms for disasters, and waiting on the Senate to act.
Okay, and that's in their world now.
It is.
All right, shifting gears. We were talking off just before. I mean, you've been appointed as chairman of a very important subcommittee. Tell the folks about it.
Well, the Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee has jurisdiction over the Corps of Engineers and EPA, NOAA, and a few other programs. But like, as we know in South Louisiana, that agency, the Corps of Engineers, is really important to us. Everything from restoring our coast and hurricane protections, our ports and navigation channels like the Mississippi River, huge deal. And being at the time a freshman when I first was told that we were going to get that gavel, really just that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
We really did luck out, and it was just a great confluence of events.
I wouldn't say it was luck though, Garret, because you do have a lot of expertise. You handled a lot of this stuff for Governor Jindal on the state, local basis, and so thank you for again putting yourself up for an opportunity to be used for all of us.
Thank you.
Shift gears in. Transportation, the FAST Act. Explain to folks what's going on now because of that.
Sure. The FAST Act was a transportation bill we did a few years ago. It authorizes all the funding, federal funding for transportation projects in Louisiana and the other states. We were able to negotiate about a $500 million increase, $500 million increase in funds for Louisiana. We also worked with a number of other members of Congress to start a new grant program for mega projects, large projects, a multi-billion-dollar grant program called the Fast Lane Grants. And we put some criteria in there because we're on the committee and involved that really called out Louisiana and kind of prioritized some of our projects. We kind of described the Washington Street exit scenario. We described some of our energy security and energy supply issues here, some of our intermodalism. Louisiana is the only place in the nation that has 6 Class 1 rail lines, 5 of the top 15 ports in the United States, and of course, I-10, I-12, I-20, I-55,
Huge
I-49.
transportation hub in every way possible.
We are, and so we talked about that intermodalism. It has allowed us to get about $100 million in extra grant funding available for our state, which is why right now you see dirt turning on our interstates, new projects,
and we need
new lanes. We do. So the 40-year-old Washington Street exit, where the interstate funnels to one lane, that's going to be ultimately remedied. Additional lane you're seeing right now between Highland Road and Highway 73, which is the Ascension Parish, Prairieville, Dutchtown exit. A new lane between the west side, Port Allen side, 415 Lobdell exit, all the way to the 1012 split. And ultimately, we're working, I think maybe even the next 2 months, we're working right now on getting the funding for a new exit at PQ Lane.
Excellent.
Between Siegen and Highland. So
Wow,
a lot
that's
going
wonderful
on.
news. Shift gears again then. Farm bill, I chuckle every time I bring it up, but it's resulting in your ability to kind of be used in a positive way as it relates to food stamps and other welfare, security, safety net.
Yeah. Locke,
vehicles.
I think that we'd all agree that we should have some type of safety net there for the poor, those who run upon hard
Absolutely.
times. But we have 92 different poverty programs, and we spend about $1 trillion a year.
That we don't have.
And we don't. And these programs, in many cases, aren't giving people a path out of poverty or a pathway to prosperity. They're stuck on a merry-go-round, and we've got to change that. So we had introduced legislation last year. We have 100 co-sponsors from across the country that puts work requirements, job training, job assistance requirements in with food stamps. So if you're going to get food stamps, that's fine. We need a safety net. But if you're on them over a certain period of time, you have to get job assistance, go to job assistance centers, job training, go through job training in order to maintain or keep that assistance, because what we found is that certain pilot programs have resulted in 60% increase in employment of those people who are on food stamps. And so just giving people the job skills they need to get back into the workforce, you get better health care, you get better just quality of life, a pathway to prosperity, control over your own destiny. So we believe that our amendment that was added to the Farm Bill could actually result in savings of tens of billions of dollars every single year. Food stamp program went from about $17 billion a year in 2000, and it ballooned to about $45 billion a year.
And the result, why did that happen?
Well, it happened because under President Obama, they rescinded a work requirement that had been put in place under President Clinton even.
Right.
And so when that was rescinded, you saw this surge into the food stamp program, and so the cost spiked. And that was just wrong.
What's the status now?
The Farm Bill's passed the House with our reforms in there. The Senate passed the bill, but they took our amendment out. So they took the food stamp work requirement out. But the good news is, Senate doesn't have final say. We go into a House-Senate conference committee. There's a lot of public support. In fact, some polls have showed 80% public support out in the public for our amendment, our bill that does a work requirement on food stamp programs. So look, this isn't something that's insensitive to the poor. This is connecting people with the job skills and the employment assistance that they need to get back into the workforce. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I would say it's a hand up. I mean, it's helping them, you said it, they get the skills they need, the education they need to not live at a subsistence level.
Yeah, that's right.
And they don't need the government to take care of them. Yeah. What other big events do you see in the horizon on the legislative level?
Well, we've got a number of infrastructure bills that we're moving. The president initially talked about this one mega large infrastructure bill, and instead what we've done, we've passed the disaster infrastructure and reform bill through the House. We're waiting on the Senate to act on that. We've passed the federal aviation airport airplane infrastructure bill through the House. We're waiting on the Senate to move on that one. And we have passed a water resources, so a Corps of Engineers, flood protection infrastructure bill through the House of Representatives as well. And we're waiting on the Senate to act on that one. But the good news on those three bills, all three of them had very strong bipartisan support, nearly 400 votes for all those bills out of 435, so great support, and I think they're going to move.
Garrett, am I correct that we are now seeing the budget process as it used to be being done now? For what, 8-10 years it hadn't been done?
It has not been done over several years, but we are actually going through passing every single appropriations bill individually, trying to avoid this scenario that we've seen in the past where they come together and spend $1 trillion or $2 trillion overnight. It's not the way to do it.
Great work, great job.
Thank you very much.
Glad you're there for us. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. Congressman Garret Graves, thank you for being with us.